They did not kill him with sword or spear. They crushed him beneath the thunderous weight of his own war elephant, the beast he once commanded as a living engine of war. Bones shattered, blood splattered, and the king who had ruled with pride was ground into the dust. How could the master of armies end up destroyed by the very monster he trusted? The answer lies in the ruthless ambition and fatal arrogance of Seleucus Keraunos. By all rights, he should have ruled all of Alexander's old empire. He was Seleucus Keraunos, a Macedonian general turned king who had shattered his enemies. After the Battle of Corupedium, he stood victorious over Lysimachus, the former master of Thrace and Macedon. Whole nations bowed to his sword and the banner of Macedon. He marched into Europe with armies and elephants, claiming Thrace and Macedon for himself. Yet destiny can be cruel. Within weeks, he was assassinated on foreign soil. In Thrace, a treacherous blow ended his life, betrayed by a pretender from his own court. Seleucus's reign had been drenched in blood from the start. He wore the laurel crown over a heart of stone. His ambition knew no mercy. In a setting of pageantry and marriage, he welcomed his half-sister to his side, only to murder her children in cold blood. In one savage act, he slaughtered 2 young princes on their mother's lap, all to eliminate rivals and cement his claim. Such brutality sent a shock through the palaces of Macedon. The king would have any blood he needed to keep power. Power had made him reckless. When the restless tribes of the north, Celtic Gauls known as barbarians, advanced toward Macedonia, Seleucus saw only contempt. A force of 20,000 Dardanian warriors offered to stand with him against the threat, but he sneered at their help and sent them away. He trusted only in his own might and in the terror of his war elephants. He boasted that the roaring beasts would shatter any foe. Yet in war, every king must pay for pride. On the eve of battle, campfires burned low under the stars. Trumpets called the legions to the field. The ground trembled as the Celtic host emerged from the dawn mist. Then the king advanced with thunder, a column of spears and roaring elephants. At first it seemed unstoppable. The elephants bristled, trumpeting defiance. Screams of men and shrieks of war horns filled the air. Spears clashed on shields and blood began to dye the grass. But then something changed. The Northmen unleashed fire on the elephants, missiles rattling against their thick armor. The elephants panicked. Mandibles clamped around tusks, eyes wild with fear. The mighty beasts turned on friend and foe alike. In an instant, the formation turned to chaos. Screaming warriors parted, unable to stop the stampede. Cries of terror and the sickening crack of charging feet echoed as elephantine legs crashed through the ranks. Amid the whirlwind, the king stood atop his great elephant, coal-lined eyes wide. Iron chains rang, and mighty engines of war bucked beneath him. For one heart-stopping moment, he was still the master. Then the beast reared. He was flung forward from the howdah. Time slowed. A shaft of sunlight glinted on his breastplate as he flew through the air. His body struck the ground with sickening force. The world exploded with pain. He landed hard on the war-torn dirt, the breath driven from his lungs. A massive knee and the elephant's foreleg bore down on his spine, a crushing weight far beyond human strength. There was no roar or cry, only the wet snap of bone. His vision darkened in spots as agony blossomed through him. Crack! His ribs split under the brute force of iron-shod feet. Blood bloomed across his chest, hot and sticky. He lay tangled in reins, dragged under the elephant's bulk as the beast shrieked and flailed. But even this was only a prelude to doom. As the monarch fought to struggle up, a Celtic warrior loomed over him. In a flash, the blade swung, flesh parted, and a storm of pain raced through his skull. Limbs went numb. Men in barbarian cloaks yanked him to his knees, spitting curses. In a final act of cruelty, they severed his head from his shoulders and rammed it onto a blood-stained pike. His life flowed out, pooling around the tusks of the very elephant he had ridden. By nightfall, the battlefield was quiet again. The Macedonian soldiers who survived retreated in horror and confusion. The leader who had invoked fear was gone. The Thunderbolt King, as Seleucus Keraunos was once called, had been felled amid the corpses of the battlefield he conquered. All that remained was his trophy, head on a spear, eyes frozen open at the stars. No one celebrated his end. None wept for him. Only the cold night wind and the grim gods of war witnessed what remained. In the end, Seleucus's fate became a warning etched in bone. A king who murdered children and spurned allies was undone by the very monsters of war he had trusted. He was betrayed by beasts as much as by men, crushed and butchered because of the pride he couldn't shed. His death plunged Macedonia into chaos. Without its ruler, the kingdom fell into 2 years of anarchy and plunder. Do you feel the weight of this tale? Imagine being betrayed by an elephant you commanded. Picture his final moments, agony mingling with the cheers of barbarians. Would you have made the same choice as he did? Thank you for watching this dark chapter of history. What emotions does this grim tale of ambition and cruelty stir in you? Share your thoughts below. If you thought this was horrifying, wait until you hear about the man who met an even more gruesome end. Ripped apart limb by limb next time on our channel.